Who's more famous right now than Anna Delvey?
The stakes of who's at the center podium are too high.
I remember every single one of them.
Me.
Someone once said that you're the average of the 3 people you spend most of your time with. Well, if you're an emerging screenwriter and the 3 people you're spending time with are masters in screenwriting, my bet is that you're in great company. Welcome to part 1 of
Notes from the Pros.
What an intro! Shout out to my editor. Thank you very much. In this 3-part mini-series, I'll share what I learned from each masterclass and outline how they could be helpful to you. Spoiler alert, all 3 of these courses are solid gold. I'll share the frosting of what I took from the lessons, but there is a delicious amount of value that I probably won't get to. However, I hope to whet your appetite nonetheless. I believe it all started for me in 2017 when Shonda's class was advertised to me. Since then, I've written many screenplays, a handful of downright awful ones, but 1 or 2 that I'm super proud of. I've also completed both Aaron and Judd's masterclasses, and in the last few years, I've rewatched and worked through all 3 masterclasses multiple times. My hope is that if you're an aspiring screenwriter, that I might be able to point you to a valuable resource to guide you in your journey to write an even better screenplay. But today, I'm starting with my 5 takeaways from Shonda Rhimes' masterclass, and I'll leave timestamps below so you can jump around to specific sections. But if you're ready to dive in, give this video a thumbs up and let's get straight into it. From the first class, you get perspective on how your job as a writer is valued in film versus television. Shonda says that film is for the director. It's the director's vision. What's in the director's head is on screen. In television, what's in the writer's head is on screen. So the joke is that in film, the director fires the writer, and in TV, the writer fires the director. But Shonda does say that the art of storytelling is fundamentally the same in both TV and film. Talking about TV, I did a fun activity where I followed her prompt of reading pilot scripts and then watching the pilots after. I actually stumbled across The Office during this activity. I'll be forever thankful for that. One of the biggest takeaways I had from her course was to think of my idea in terms of what is going on in the world. If it seems like the world is in a good place, writing something darker could work. However, if the world seems to be in a bit of a gloomy spot, then writing something lighter could be better received. She talks about Scandal being a cynical show, but because the world was in the midst of the yes we can glow of the positive and optimistic Obamas, people seemed to be comfortable to watch more of a darker show. West Wing was more of an optimistic show and added some light when it seemed that is what the world needed. Shonda had so much to say about story. I wrote a pilot for a TV series, and before I even started writing, I created an entire document about my character. I made a date out of this. No, seriously. I took my husband on a date to a wine farm, and we had a picnic, and I discussed all of my characters with him, and it was interesting to note what he found interesting, and then also what seemed to bore him or come across a little bit unoriginal. I dived into the who, what, where, why, and how. I looked at what the characters wanted, what they needed, what they were searching for. Shonda lists a variety of questions to help you along this process. Who am I telling a story about, and what story am I telling? Who is this person? What journey are they on? What do they need to learn? What are their obstacles? What makes them quirky? What makes them fascinating? If they're a villain, have you made them 3D? Shonda said that she doesn't think that pitching is a productive example of what you're like as a writer. I couldn't agree more with this. However, she shares great tips regarding structuring a pitch. Here are some of the points worth considering. What is your show about? What is the world your show is set in? What are the characters? What is the plot? Have you given the person something to hang on emotionally? How is your character moving the story forward? It's okay to say things like it's extraordinarily moving or incredibly funny. And she had a great point here, because if you share the joke that makes the screenplay incredibly funny or talk about that moment that is so emotional, it might not resonate with the person who's hearing your pitch. So just speaking in broader terms could be useful. And then my favorite points in the entire pitching section is when she encourages you to practice your pitch at double the pace with music on in the background. Shonda kindly shares how terrible her pitch for Grays went, but that the content of her pitch was great. Her delivery, not so much. She mentioned that she was sweating and that she was monotone. And this gave me so much hope because I've done a pitch before and I don't know what came over me. It felt like somebody was making popcorn inside of me. I just developed a stutter and I started shaking and I was sweating uncontrollably. Hearing her story gave me hope. And I've planned a couple of pitches this year, so we'll see how those go. Shonda then walks you through the 5 acts of television. Each act is roughly 11 pages. In Act 1, you set up your characters and the world, you draw the audience in, and you present your problem. In Act 2, the situation starts to escalate. In Act 3, things take a turn for the worse, or for the most exciting. This is where you hold onto your seats, or that part in a television show where a new piece of evidence pops up. In Act 4, there's the ticking clock. And in Act 5, you hit that moment of victory or defeat. Then Shonda also elaborates on the A, B, and C stories. The A story is the story that you're telling in your show. The B story helps the A story along. And then the C story is somewhat smaller. She speaks about that beautiful moment that can be achieved if you get it right where all 3 of the storylines intersect. Those are just 5 of the things that I learned from the Shonda Rhimes Masterclass, and there is so much more that I actually took notes on, and I'll touch on a couple of these as I discuss the next master in screenwriting, Aaron Sorkin. Hi, Aaron. Are you ready? Somebody needs to give my editor a raise. Subscribe and give this editor some love, and we'll see you next week for some more
Notes from the pros.
Let's circle back to that raise, okay?